These are the dominant 7th with a sharp 9 and a flat 9, and a raised 11th or a flat 5 with a natural 13th. So they're going to come from the diminished scale type or the octatonic scale, the double diminished, whatever name you choose to ascribe to it. We're going to start on B flat, and this is on the 1, 2, 5, 6 string family. So we'll start with a basic B flat D, F, and a B natural. So sort of a B chord with a lowered 9th. We can use a raised 9th, which is the D flat. That's all within the scale. And again, any of these formations, they'll start on a B, and then they'll a B flat, and then they'll start on a B. So there'll be another type, and then again, those are repeatable. So anything that starts on a B can go on a D flat, can go on an E, and a G. Anything that starts on a B, for example, can go on a D, an F, and an A flat and adhere to the same scale or the same family of sounds. So again, this is the B flat with a sharp 9 and a flat 9, and of course resolving to an E flat. The resolutions will of course be E flat and C minor. There'll be G flat and E flat minor. And so basically in that cycle of thirds, those aren't the only resolutions, and then they're relative minors. G flat A and A minor and C, etc. Okay, so they all function typically as in B flat, but also as a G7, as an E7, and as a B flat 7, obviously, and a D flat 7. Okay, so here we are on the B flat. Okay. Also, we can move the middle voice to G. That's in the scale. So we have a sort of a 13 flat 9. This is a G chord. B flat, D, G, and B. And we can move the middle voice to A flat. We get a standard flat 9 chord. B flat 7, flat 9. We can make it a sharp 9. B flat, D, A flat, and D flat. Now we can move the G to an E. That's nice. B flat, D, E, and C sharp. And again, moving in thirds and resolving, in that case, to E flat minor, or it can resolve to A minor, again, to C minor. It doesn't matter. We'll work a little more with those as we go. So this E can also, as an inner voice on the B string, can be coupled with an A flat on top, B flat, D, E, and A flat, which also has a whole tone scale type sound. We'll deal with that in another section. Now additionally, we can move the D. So the D that we have can move to an F. So here is B flat, F, G, and B. So that is a nice thick sounding 13 flat 9 sort of sound. And if we voice exchange, we can swap out later on the B flat and the B, which will give us the root for the other harmonies that we'll do on the B natural itself, B, F, G, and B flat. And we can move the inner voice to A flat. And we can move the top voice to A flat. So we can start to see that those are sort of malleable. Those seconds on top gives us a nice, diminished sound for a dominant. Going back to the B flat, D, G, and B, if we swap voices, in other words, instead of the two inner voices on the A and the D string being D and G, they can become F and E, and we get 2/5, B flat and F, and E and B on top, which is a great altered dominant type sound. So that works really well as a resolution type. That's really great. It's a really great sound. That altered dominant. And again, it's movable, okay? So any of those sounds are obviously very, very movable in this scale or this type of sound, okay? And even just B flat, D, E, and B gives you that classic kind of tritone sound, and it can move down to an A minor nicely. That's really nice half-step motion there. That works really well. so those are the general sounds on the B flat. They're probably the most common ones. We're not limited to those, but let's move to the B temporarily. So as the sounds on the B flat can be moved to G, and they can move to D flat, etc., and E even, you know. So any of these can fold out like this. So we can use one set of sounds and then swap it out with maybe a sharp 9 like this, etc. So they're all movable as a sequence. Okay, here's the B sounds. We'll start with the B, F, G, and B flat, giving us sort of looks like a G7 with a sharp 9, and we can make that a flat 9 by moving the top voice to A flat. And again, movable like we saw earlier, but now on F, and D, B, and A flat. That's very nice resolution to an A minor 11. Now, if we look at this one again, we can swap voices. For instance, the E and F can get swapped out, and we have this sort of a B, E, F, and B flat, 2/4. So that's an interesting, so that's like an E sound with a B flat on the top, which has a really interesting resolution because you get this sort of tritone sound as well, which can fold out to an E flat, and if we move it down here, it can fold out to a C or a C minor, E flat major, does not matter. Okay, and very easy to finger, obviously. Now, what's nice about that is a sound like that is we can move one of the voices, so the F can move to a G, and it can move to an A flat. Really nice resolution for that. So, you know, resolving to a C minor, that's great. Also, the top voice can move to an A flat or a G. So we get, you know, we have all those different sorts of resolutions. Then we can take it to a C or an A minor, again to a G flat major is fine. You know, this sort of resolves nicely to E flat as well. So that's that range of sounds. Now, you know, there's plenty more. If we could take that and expand it, we can take the E and move it to G, and we have a sharp 9 on G, B, G, F, and B flat. So that's a G7 sharp 9, and you can see the inner voices can movable by minor thirds, and then we resolve to a C, you know, or a C minor. You know, G7 sharp 9 resolving to a G flat. Yeah, that's a nice. You know, they can resolve down, you know, and up by semitones. So that's an easy finger. So watch this: G7, B, G, F, B flat, resolving up to C, E flat, F, and B flat. Again, this is just in minor thirds. Okay, so there's your G7 with the sharp 9. We can also bring the top voice up to D flat to get a tritone sound. B, G, F, and D flat. So that sounds like, you know, that sounds like a G and a D flat at once. That's fine as well. Also, from this sound, it has its origins. If I go back to B, F, G, and B flat, it has its origins actually here in a diminished 7th. So that's a B, D, F, and A flat straight up and down. There's a G7, and there's a straight B diminished. So that's straight up and down. Now, if we take the upper voice, A flat, move it to B flat, we have a very interesting diminished major 7. So that's a great dominant 7 type sound. And that sounds great. Moving to C minor, for instance, with the inside knife. We can move, again, anywhere to G flat, wherever we need it to go. But that's a great movable form. Also, two tritones. This is a nice form, B, F, E, and B flat. So that's a nice dominant 7 kind of sound. And that's just two tritones. Now I can move the top voice, B, F, E, and D flat. So we can swap voices. So this would go from B, F, E, and D flat to, or this one, B, F, G, and B flat. So it's sort of a voice kind of expansion. And then a resolution to C minor or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Really nice stuff. That's a great sound. And then moving to the C like that. Okay, so that's another good voicing that works. Now, there are options within that. For instance, this perfect fourth from the sharp 9 chord can move up a perfect fourth, a minor third. So B, G, F, and B flat can become B, G, A flat, and D flat. And then we can expand further going upwards. So all of a sudden, we have this. We have that kind of a formation, but now we can move the E natural. So now we have a 13 flat 9. We have B, G, A flat, and E. So we have E major and G at the same time. So we have that. And again, these things can collapse, so we can mix and match the different types of voicings like that. The ones on B and the ones on B flat. So that's an expansion of the diminished, which is here. So the diminished going the other way is B, F, A flat, and D. So instead of the first way, which was downwards, it's more upwards. And again, any tone above works, or a semitone below gives you a dominant. So we get a really nice diminished sequence from that, which can be mixed perhaps with a dominant 7. So we have like a D sort of diminished sound embellished, and a D flat, sharp 9, do it on B, and then a B flat, sharp 9, and then resolving to an E flat minor, for an example. Now we can mix and match these. Obviously, the possibilities are endless. But for instance, if we took the ones on a B first, so B, F, G, and A flat, and we can make a scale melody on top, perhaps. A flat on top, B flat on top, and then we go to a B flat, F, G, and B. And then that's got a B on top. We're going to move to a sharp 9 with a D flat on top. So now we have a sequence that's movable. Resolve to G flat. So that's sort of a scale-wise resolution. Obviously, any chord within this type of tonality can be moved, and a sequence can be derived from it. For instance, and it doesn't matter, it's just up to the ear. For instance, let's go back to our B flat, D, G, and B. Now, if we take each tone up by a scale tone, we get another harmony that comes straight off like this, and then we just move ahead, and we move it. So I just took B flat, D, G, and B. I moved this to B, this to E, and then I moved the G to A flat, and then I moved the B to D flat. So I have this. And then resolve. Okay? So any harmony that comes from that can be done. That way we could take the sharp 9 and do it that way. We could sequence it and get this sort of. That's nice. I like that one. And then and we resolve. So here it is: B flat, D, A flat, and D flat, moving up to B, E, B flat, and D, which is like an E and a B flat tritone sound. D flat sharp 9, G with a D flat type sound, E7 sharp 9, B flat with an E type sound, and then maybe we'll resolve to E flat major from there, or E flat minor, it doesn't matter. So any of these resolution points can go up by semitone as well. So this G can go to the A flat, this E can go to an F or an F minor, it does not matter. Resolve to a D even. Now, one more point of interest with these is the role of the minor 7th, which sometimes gets missed off. And a lot of these have minor 7 possibilities in them. For example, there are 4 minor, they're not just 4 dominants or diminished, there are 4 minor 7 chords within this type of sound. So if we look, for instance, this is a G minor 7, D, G, F, and B flat. And this is an E minor 7, which is B, E, G, and D. And we can move that to an E minor 7, to a D flat minor 7, and we can move that to a B flat minor 7, and back to a C minor 7. So there are 4 minor 7s: G, B flat, D flat, and E. And these are obviously very useful, and they're well connected within this scale. So if we look, for instance, I just did that sequence. So I did, this is B flat minor 7, G minor 7, E minor, back to G, D flat, E, and then B flat to D flat. Now, they're very similar in their voice leading. And for example, we can see this very clearly. We have an E minor 7, and close by is a G minor 7. Close by is a D flat minor 7 and a B minor 7. So here's the E minor 7 to the G. If we notice that the fifth stays the same, so the E and B becomes F and B flat, just collapses. Here's a B flat minor 7, which is A flat and D flat, F and B flat, and then all we do is we move the top 2 voices back to E and B. So we have this. And that moves in minor thirds, of course. So these sort of sequences work really nicely, and they sound just like the scale. They have the scale sound. Okay, so in this instance, I went G minor, B flat, C sharp or D flat, and E, and then just cycle it upwards. And that has an identifiable sound with the octatonic scale. Again, these can fold over as well, voice exchange. For instance, if here's a G minor, I exchange the outer 2 voices, B flat and D, flip. Okay. B flat, minor, B flat F, A flat and D flat, flips as well. So we have this, D flat, F, A flat, and B flat. E minor, same thing, flips for B and D. D, that would be D, E, G, and B. And the C sharp does the same thing. B, E, A flat, and D flat, flips to D flat and F flat, A flat, and C flat. We can hear all those voice exchanges, which work really nicely, and they give the resolution. They sound great. They have a great octatonic diminished sound, and they are minor 7s, keeping in mind that the perfect fifths on each side are the determinant. For instance, if we do a tritone relationship, both perfect fifths move. Here's D flat, A flat, D flat, E, and B. If we do G minor 7, the A flat and D flat expanded to G and D. The E and B contracted to A, F, and B flat. Like I said, a typical contraction and expansion. mentioned. Tritone relationships do that with minor sevens. Same thing with the E minor. Here it is. Now if we want to go to B flat minor, what happens? The G and D contracts to A and D flat, and same thing with the top voices. So we have this, and then with D flat to G, the same thing. So we have those same relationships. So we have to be aware that there are perfect fifths that expand and contract within the tritone relationship in the octatonic scale. All of these can be used as dominant substitutes, so they resolve in the same way. So if we're taking these from that octatonic scale, they resolve the same way. So all of those sequences, this is why C minor 7 goes to C major nicely. E minor 7 goes to E flat. G minor goes to G flat. And C sharp minor goes to C. It's because it's part of that sequence as well. They all form a pseudo-dominant, sort of a dominant sound because they're derived from that scale. And again, the possibilities are limitless really on this chord family. This chord family seems to give up a lot of permutations, a lot of useful combinations. And that'll just give you a basic survey of those sounds, the octatonic diminished sounds. Sharp 9, flat 9, sharp 11 with a natural 13 on the B flat dominant and the B diminished on the 1, 2, 5, 6 string family.